We've been exploring the color area within the foundation of our design system. In the last session, we covered how to build the basis of a color palette using logic and mathematical rules, rather than relying on pure intuition. In this part, we'll continue right along that same logical flow. In the last session, we created a color palette using a mathematical formula. Now, it's time to give those colors meaningful labels and verify that they function properly within the interface. Shall we dive in and start assigning true semantic meaning to our design system colors? Now, it's time to give those colors we created last time proper labels, so they can do their job within the interface. We'll explore semantic colors, which define color labels based on the true intent of the design system, rather than just simple brightness values. What happens in real-world development if you tell a developer, please make this main button blue 5. If the main color changes to green later during a brand renewal, you'll have to manually go through and change every single color assigned as blue 5 to green. This happens because the name blue 5 only carries a raw color value. It doesn't contain any design intent regarding what role this color actually plays on the screen. That's why global companies use a 3-layer token structure when converting colors into code. They build a framework that flows from primitive or global tokens, which serve as the raw atomic materials, to alias or semantic tokens, which define their roles, and finally to component tokens, which are tied directly to specific UI elements. Once you understand this structure, maintaining a massive service with thousands of components becomes significantly easier and more convenient. The first step is the primitive token, also known as the global token. This refers to the 10-step color palette itself that we created using formulas in the previous lesson. It's named by combining the color name and brightness value, such as blue 1 through blue 10. Depending on the context, it can also be named from 100 to 900. What you need to keep in mind is that the colors at this stage do not yet contain any design intent or role. They are simply raw, pure materials registered in the design system. Next is the semantic token stage. This is where we assign actual meaning to colors that were previously just raw materials. Many people wonder if there is a fixed formula for naming them. In reality, naming structures can be defined quite flexibly, depending on how you combine the 3 blocks: subject and hierarchy, role and target area, and state. If you want to group and manage brand themes in one place like Ant Design, you can place the subject at the very front. Conversely, if managing specific areas like text or backgrounds is more important, you can place the role first. You can decide the sequence based on your product's characteristics and management convenience, but here is the single most important principle. Color names like blue or red completely disappear from this stage onward and must be replaced with the logical language of your product. When we analyze Ant Design's color tokens, we can see 4 categories. They are divided into a prefix for design system classification, a subject for the central theme, a target for the specific role or area of application, and a state. However, if you look closely at the list, the sequence of the naming varies slightly. In some cases, the brand or theme comes first, like color, primary, BG, hover, while in other cases the role comes first, like control, item, BG, active. The reason for this shift in sequence is purely for efficient grouping. When developers are coding, searching for the keyword primary should bring up all the associated backgrounds, borders, and text bundled together in order, making the system much easier to grasp. In other words, the sequence of the name is not just a random combination of words, but a carefully designed strategy tailored for the convenience of the people using the design system. Of course, even here, concrete color names like blue or red are completely excluded. The final third step is the component token. You can think of it as the stage where a color is tied directly to a specific property of a specific component. Component tokens are usually named by combining the component name, type, property, and state. For example, the default background color of a primary button would be button, primary, BG, default, and the active border of an input field would be input, default, border, active. By linking colors this way, even if you run into a situation where a specific component needs a unique color change, you can modify that component token independently without affecting the rest of the design system. Let's take a look at the ant design example again. Basically, it consists of the variant, state, and property. Instead of using the full name, it places the button type like default or primary at the front, followed by the state like hover or active, and then combines them with the property like BG or color. Representative examples include names like primary, color, or default, hover, BG. As you can see, you can think of the component token as the final stage at the very end of the design system that establishes the actual UI style. Let's wrap things up. We've learned how to take raw materials created with formulas, assign roles to them using semantic tokens, and finally apply them using component tokens. As long as you establish this three-layer structure properly, you can seamlessly maintain both design and code, no matter how massive the project gets. In the next part, we'll dive into accessibility to verify whether the colors we've built are clearly visible on actual screens. Now that we've created our colors using formulas and given them logical names, it's time to verify whether these colors are clearly visible to users on actual screens. No matter how flawless a design system is, it's a failed design if the text is unreadable. In this session, we'll explore web color accessibility verification to ensure our designs embrace and include all users. Once you've extracted a color palette using logical formulas and assigned clear names, you must verify whether these colors function safely across various real-world user environments. No matter how perfect your design system structure is or how aesthetically pleasing the colors are, if visually impaired users or those with color blindness cannot see the information, it is a failed design. That is why global design systems always verify color accessibility against objective mathematical standards. The core standard for accessibility verification is the contrast ratio. According to global web standard guidelines, the contrast ratio between regular text and its background must meet at least 4.5 to 1 for a level AA rating. This ensures that information within the interface is safely and clearly communicated. For stricter environments like medical systems or platforms where high contrast is absolute, you need to control your colors to hit a ratio of 7 to 1 or higher, which satisfies the level AAA rating. The know-how to easily integrate this into a production design system is to officially declare a safe zone within your documentation. Within our 10-step palette created by formulas, you establish a guide. Pair light backgrounds from steps 1 through 5 with black text and dark backgrounds from steps 6 through 10 with white text. By predefining this safe zone, anyone on the team can automatically maintain safe accessibility without having to manually calculate the contrast ratio every single time. Let me introduce a tool that will help you audit accessibility. It's the Figma plugin called Contrast. Simply click on the object you want to check, and you can instantly see if it meets the contrast standards. Going through this verification step when creating content is what truly reflects the professionalism of a design system designer. Today, we learned how to assign semantic meaning to a color scale built with formulas, and how to verify it for web accessibility. The color foundation of a design system is truly complete only when mathematical rules, clear design intent, and inclusive accessibility verification all come together. In the next session, we'll return with the final part of the color section. See you in the next video. I'm Dudu.